Hey, it's me, Hannah. Welcome to another chapter of my so far unnamed series in which I create fantasy-inspired crochet and knitwear. In this series, my goal is to let my unyielding compulsion to crochet myself through the daylight saving season run rampant as I continue my pursuit of bringing whimsy to my everyday. Thanks for being here. For the past week or so, I have been scouring the internet for the best Jester-esque hat patterns that kind of walk that very fine line of whimsy and wearability. And while some of the more aggressively clown-core hats that I've seen are absolute stunning pieces of art, I just know that I wouldn't wear them. So I wanted to find some patterns that would still be worth my time and effort in terms of making them, i.e. I'll wear them later, while still scratching that Harlequin itch. And here's what I found. The first crochet hat design that I am trying to tackle here is super simple, yet certainly statement enough piece to possibly meet my requirements for the balance that I'm trying to strike here. And that is a Single-Hexagon Jester Hat. This gives me the same energy that a cat ear beanie does, in that you take a very simple shape, you sew up the sides, and voila, you have a very cute, quirky cap. Now this should be just as easy because you create one hexagon using granny stitches and then just fold it over to get that Jester hat shape. I'll link to some of my favorite inspo pics from Etsy and other video tutorials that I found down in the description. But having just finished my first hexagon sweater, I feel I am more than well enough equipped to just wing it. Now I think color choice is going to be pretty important here. And I had originally loved the idea of just doing this in like a green and white stripe. Green and white are very wearable colors for me. But while I was at the store for something else entirely, I accidentally walked into the yarn section and accidentally picked up this Karen Cakes in the color pistachio. And now I don't have to worry about switching colors throughout. That's gonna save me like minutes of time. Let's get started. Okay, so even though there are infinite videos and free patterns out there on how to do a granny hexagon, let me show you how I'm tackling this. We'll keep things easy and skip the magic circle and rather get your hook set up with a slip knot, and then we'll chain 4. We'll slip stitch into that first chain, and look at that, we have ourselves a circle. Now that we've got our circle, let's chain 3. Then do 2 double crochets into the circle. This is our first cluster of granny stitches. So we're going to chain 2 and then double crochet 3 times to create another cluster all into the center circle. As you can see, I am crocheting over the tail just because that makes it easier to, one, kind of tug on the tail a little bit to close that circle. And even more importantly, now I won't have to worry about weaving in the ends once I'm done. Okay, so we've created our second cluster. We're going to do that same process, the chain 2 and 3 granny stitches into the circle until we have 6 clusters. As it starts to get more crowded in here, you can just kind of tug on the first chain 3 to give yourself a little more space in that circle. All right, we are up to 6 clusters, so we are going to do one more chain 2, and then we are going to slip stitch into the top of that original chain 3. And that is round 1 done. For round 2, we're basically going to double things up. We are actually going to start by slip stitching our way up to a space that was created in the first round. So we'll slip stitch, we've just finished slip stitching into the first, I guess it was a chain 3 from the first round. Then we're going to slip stitch into that first double crochet and slip stitch into that space. So now we're up to our starting point for round 2. Let's kick things off with another chain 3. And then double crochet 2 times into that space, that same space. Now we're going to chain 2, and in that same space again, add 3 more double crochets. Next, we're going to chain 1, and then going to the next space that was created during round 1, we are going to add 3 double crochets, chain 2, and in that same space again, add 3 more double crochets. Again, that was all in that same space. So we're going to duplicate this the rest of the way around. So chain 1, 3 double crochets, then chain 2, 3 double crochets in the same space, chain 1, move to the next space. You get the idea. And we'll finish with 1 more chain 1, and then slip stitch into the chain 3 from the beginning of the round. Now you can sort of see the hexagon starting to take shape here, and it's important to note where the corners are developing, like which spaces the corners are. You might want to add stitch markers. I will probably just fumble my way through, but if you find it easier, just add stitch markers to these corners so that you can keep track of which spaces are the corners. For round 3, we are going to once again slip stitch our way up to this corner space. So slip stitch there and a slip stitch into the corner. We're once again going to chain 3, which will act as our first double crochet before we add 2 more double crochets into that corner space. We'll once again chain 2 and add another 3 double crochets to the corner space. We'll go ahead and add our chain 1. And now we are going to add a cluster of granny stitches to this side space, but just 1 cluster. So 3 double crochets, and then chain 1 before we add 3 more double crochets to the next corner space. So corner spaces get 2 clusters with a chain 2 in between. And side spaces just get 1 cluster. And we are going to continue that pattern all the way around to finish this round off and also carry it forward for all future rounds, basically until you get your side pieces to be the right length, which will be about half of your head circumference. Now that we know how we're going to continue to build this out, I am going to go ahead and take this somewhere a little more comfy and cozy and work on it until I get the side to be about 11.5 inches wide, which is half of my head circumference, give or take. It's got a little stretch to it, so whatever gets me close enough there. But yeah, let's get to a more comfy spot. So while I build out this hexagon to be big enough, just again following that same pattern, I want to ask you a question. I don't know why, but I'm feeling so shy about this, but my New Year's resolution for next year is to start a Patreon. And I have some ideas on how I can at least get started, but I want to hear from you, more regular viewers. If I were to set something like that up, what would you want to see as part of the tier structure? I personally love seeing patron shoutouts on other channels, and I am a patron to a number of creators who offer things from, you know, behind the scenes content and pattern releases, or even access to like a community chat. Honestly, in preparation for this video, being able to put out a poll to like a select few team members would have been super helpful. So yeah, I had to think about what value adds might sparkle the most with the regulars around these parts, and I decided that it just made the most sense to go straight to the source. So let me know what kinds of things you might want to see in those tiers, and I'll hopefully finish setting that up in time for the new year. I love this, and I love you guys, And it would be such a pleasure to be able to do more and get you guys more involved. And yeah, I don't know. Okay, stop. Let's get back to crocheting. Okay, so we're getting pretty close. I definitely have a few more rounds to do. And obviously each round gets longer as we continue to build it out, but I am definitely questioning the colors. I thought we would see some color changes a little more early on. If I don't get more green out of this, then, well, I'll probably keep the hat, but I will probably start again so I can try and get more of the realization of what was in my head. So I'm gonna keep going on this, pray for a little more green to come back, and I guess we'll just see where we land. Okay, I am pretty happy with where we've made it thus far. I honestly probably could have stopped like a row earlier, but I do really like the way that the lime green looks on the dark greens. I'm happy to deal with that by adding a little bit of a tighter ribbing, which we'll get to in a second, but we're at the point now where we can add a single crochet up both sides of the shape in order to close the hat. And then for the ribbing, for the brim of the hat, I do think I want to be able to kind of flip it up. So I'll need the ribbing to be pretty long. So I don't know if I will finish it tonight. I'll probably go ahead and get cozy and get settled in for the evening. And then we'll kind of chip away at wrapping up the actual construction here and turning this from just a hexagon into a hat. I don't know. I'm really excited. The colors aren't what I originally planned for, but they are really pretty, and I do really like this pistachio colorway. And this feels like a hat that I'm actually gonna wear, which was like the #1 thing I was looking for out of any of this. So far so good. We'll see where we get to before the end of the night, and then I will see you tomorrow. After using single crochets to sew up the sides of the hat, I created the ribbing by chaining 16, turning the project to single crochet into each chain, turning again, and in the back loops only, single crocheting, back and forth until the band was long enough to go around my head with a little bit of a stretch. I used stitch markers to get the brim lined up with the rest of the hat and single crocheted them together. I then broke out the pom-pom maker that I received as a gift for Christmas ages ago and added what I believe to be the most important detail and really brought the Jester look to life. All right, I am going to wait until the project reveal to show you the final product, but a little sneak peek. I am very pleased with how this crocheted, I'm calling it a Single-Hexagon Jester hat came out, and you'll see why I'm calling it a Single-Hexagon in a minute. So if nothing else, this video has at least one success. I'm so excited to show you. So now the next hat that I want to attempt to give a little bit more of a Jester-core spin is a Star Beret. I did find a free tutorial from Average is Lame on YouTube, but now that you know how to do 4 rounds of a granny crocheted hexagon, you can make this too. This is another one where I think color is going to be pretty important in helping convey the nod in a direction of a jester. So I've actually been playing around with some of my favorite colors and colors that I know that I'm more likely to wear. And while I think these are all beautiful and I am tempted to just make, a couple different hats and have all the different colorways, I do think that what I like the most for this project is just a red and white stripe. Maybe it's because we're around the Christmas season. It is kind of giving candy cane, but I think once we get into January, it will stop feeling so delicious and maybe feel a little bit more clown. So we'll see where this takes us. I am going to slightly switch up my granny hexagon to give it a little bit more pizzazz too. And I'm going to follow a YouTube tutorial from Me Mom Makes for the slightest variation in which we crochet a granny cluster stitch, not to be confused with a cluster of granny stitches, which is what we did in our last hexagon. I'll link to her tutorial, but I'll show you what I mean shortly. We are going to need 7 of these hexagons to construct the hat, so let's get to work. All right, let's kick things off with a slip knot and then a chain of 4. Now we'll slip stitch into that first chain, and we have a circle. We'll make our first cluster stitch of the round, which begins with a chain 2. Then we will essentially start a double crochet by yarning over, inserting our hook into the ring, yarning over again, pulling through, yarning over, and pulling through the first 2 loops on our hook. And that, of course, leaves 2 loops. Now, instead of continuing the double crochet, we're going to yarn over, insert our hook again, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, and assuming we can keep our tail out of the way, pull through 2 more loops. So now we have 3 loops left on our hook. We'll finish the stitch now with a yarn over, and we'll pull that through all 3 of those loops. And that is our first granny cluster stitch of the round. And we're going to start each round with that specific stitch. Let me show you what the rest of the stitches look like as we go to make our 6-sided hexagon here. So I've chained 2 to put a space in between each of our clusters. To do all of the other granny clusters, we are going to yarn over, insert our hook, yarn over again, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. We will yarn over, insert our hook, yarn over and pull through, yarn over. We're going to now pull through 2 more loops. So we have those 3 loops on our hook. Now to finish, we will yarn over, insert our hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, and now we have 4. And to finish the stitch, we will yarn over, pull through all 4. And that gives us a nice little cluster. What's cool about this stitch is that it helps us give more of a point at the ends of each of these clusters. So it almost gives it a little bit more of a starburst shape. And yeah, I just think that gives it a little extra flair. So now I'm gonna breeze through this. If you want the fuller tutorial, I highly recommend you go check out Me Mom Makes video. I'll be linking to it in the description, but it's pretty much the same process as a regular granny hexagon, like the one we just did previously, except we're doing the cluster stitches instead. So it's just gonna continue to build out in the same way. At the end of this round, I will be doing a color change to switch over to red so that we can get that striped look. But even that is pretty intuitive. And again, Mima Makes has which I'm obsessed with that YouTube channel name. Mima Makes has a number of resources on how to do color changes and different stitches in the granny square and granny hexagon space. So yeah, go check out those videos. I found them super helpful. All right, that is 6 clusters. I'm going to chain 2 once more and then slip stitch into the top of that cluster. Because I'm doing a color change, I'm going to slip stitch once more just to give it a little extra security before I cut off this tail. And then using red yarn, I am going to turn the work a little bit so I'm not starting at the exact same point on every round, but rather I'll start in this space, this corner here, and leaving a little bit of a tail. I am going to insert my hook, grab the yarn and pull it through. And when I'm adding new yarn, I like to go ahead and grab both ends to do that first slip stitch, or a slip knot, if you will. And that way it just kind of secures it a little bit more before I proceed with just the working yarn. So we are going to chain 2, give that tail a nice tug just for extra security. And now we're going to do another one of our beginning of the round clusters. So yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, and finish the stitch by yarning over and pulling through the 3 loops that were on your hook. Because we're on round 2, we're going to slide this over just a little bit. We'll chain 2 and we'll do our next granny cluster, which is a regular cluster. Before we go to the next space from round 1, we are going to chain 2 one more time. And then we'll do the same with 2 clusters in each space with a chain 2 in between. And we'll keep doing that all the way around. When we get to the tail of the white, just like we're doing with our red, we're just stitching around that to capture it and pull it through with us as we move around the circle. Well, hexagon, I guess. And then once we get to the end, we will slip stitch into the top of our first cluster, slip stitch one more time for security, and trim our tail. So this is the back side of our hexagon, and as you can see, I've been carrying through the tail of the new yarn, and I know it doesn't really matter because it's on the back side of the hexagon. This will presumably be on the inside of the hat, but just for extra bonus points here, I think what I'm going to do is actually pull this tail out and then ensure that it is picked up on the next round so that at least the colors don't overlap. Oh, I guess I have to do that here too. So I'll go ahead and pull that through just so I'm reminded when I'm working with the white on round 3 to pick up those tails and not have to worry about, overlap in color. All right, for round 3, we are back with our white color, and I am going to find a space that is specifically in a corner, which if you look at the points of the first round, it's going to be in between those. So this is going to be our corner space going forward. I'm going to insert my hook, pull the yarn through, secure the yarn, and then chain 2. We're starting off the exact same way we have for all of the other rounds so far, with our granny cluster ending as we pull through 3 loops on our hook. Then once again, we're chaining 2, doing one more granny cluster in the same space. And then we are going to do our first side cluster. And this is where I'll go ahead and stop picking up the tail from this round as well, as we chain 2 and then add 1 granny cluster, only 1 cluster stitch to this space. And this will be our side, first side of the hexagon. We'll chain 2 once more and do another corner, which of course will have 2 cluster stitches in them with a chain 2 in between. Then we're back to 1 cluster stitch for the side space, chain 2, and then we're back to a corner. And I have started to pick up my red yarn tails as well. And we will just continue this pattern all the way around. Okay, our last round will be 1 more round of red stitches. So we will insert in a corner space. You can track where the corners are building up. In a corner space, we will insert our hook, pull through our red yarn and secure the yarn, chain 2, and begin our first cluster. Chain 2 and 1 more cluster in that corner space. If you're anything like me, you will constantly forget that you're doing a double crochet cluster stitch instead of 3 double crochets. I have to constantly remind myself. In this round, our sides are of course getting longer. So we have 2 spaces that we're doing our single cluster stitches in before we do our corners. And then once we get to the corner, that's when we will put 2 granny clusters with a chain 2 in between into the same space. And then we'll do the same thing all the way around. And just like the previous rounds, we will slip stitch to secure and tie off the end. Okay, all set. I think all I need to do now is weave in these 2 tiny ends and then add this to my growing pegboard of hexagons so that I can hit them with the steam before I go to construct the hat. So a little bit of blocking, nothing too crazy. I do have 4 more to make in order to finish the hat. So I'll probably just rip through those tonight and then we can worry about construction tomorrow. Well, I got distracted with other projects last night, so I waited until this morning to really get started on the last 4 hexagons, but they went by pretty quickly and I had them done in under 2 hours. Alrighty, I have all of my pieces completed and blocked lightly, just a little bit of steam while being held in a nice hexagonal position. And I think that they look really nice. I'm happy with these. So now we are going to arrange these so that we have 1 central hexagon and then each of these other hexagons line up with the outside edges of that central hexagon. And so our first step here in terms of our construction is to, with a slip stitch, connect along each of these edges on that central hexagon. I love this so much. It is like trippy to look at in a way that is so satisfying to me. So really all I need to do is add a little band around the bottom, a little brim, if you will, which will be more than easy enough. And I think I want to add pom-poms to this as well, just on the corners up here. I think that that would be what really takes it from like a kooky beret to more of a jester look. I might be leaning on these pom-poms a little heavy, but I think that's what's gonna get us there. So I will add another hat brim, this time much thinner. It does not need to be as wide as the brim on my previous hat. And then rip through some pom-poms and we'll have hat number 2 done. I decided to test run these Harlequin hats out on a coffee and Christmas shopping date with darling husband, and I am delighted to say that not only do I think I perfectly towed the line between whimsical and wearable, but I also received several compliments as we went about our day. I did fully lean into the festive look of the red and green hats in light of the season, but while that wasn't the intention, it made the day extra delightful. The Star Beret might have been more impactful as a Jester-inspired look if I had made each of the granny hexes one row bigger, but I think that might have made it a little less wearable for me. But if you think I haven't clowned close enough to the sun, feel free to make yours bigger, and then tag me when you post it because I want to see the bigger version. I do think I want to try the Single-Hexagon hat once more to nail down a more striped look, but I do love how this one turned out. It might be a touch big too, so I'd probably do one row less on the hex, or just make the brim circumference a bit smaller to sort of cinch the folded hexagon a bit more. Either way, I might say that this is the more wearable of the two, and I could see making this in just a black or gray to be a very run-of-the-mill beanie in the front, and then a jester-esque party in the back. I had so much fun making these and wearing them out on the town, and if you had as much fun as I did, it would mean the world to me if you would like and subscribe. And if you do, I will see you in 2 weeks for my next video. Take care.